Economic Development Committee, March 6, 2025.
I'd like to call Economic Development Committee to order at 6 p.m. The members present are Vicky DeShawn, Christopher Moritz, C. Aaron Sherrick, and myself, Zion Hickman Chair. Do you have any public participation for economic development?
Kurt Fankhauser, 1415 Michigan Drive. What I had brought up at the last council meeting regarding the DeWine rural housing potential program, I followed up with Jeff Dunn today, and we kind of discussed about the Teddy Avenue, Dudley Street area, and he told me he thinks it could be developed. There might be one tile running through that field, but that's not going to be any different than another field that you go into. You're going to run into tile and develop it out. So as far as getting housing, a potential housing project in that area for them already platted out parcels, I think could be a positive thing. Now those parcels are smaller width lots, so this is where we're going to need Mike to start looking at tiny homes more. The other potential land that I was looking into was over there around the Arrowhead, Ricky Lee Lane. There is some undeveloped farmland, and this is kind of Flint Avenue, that I talked to the owner of that farmland today. He's a house builder, and he's highly interested if the city could get that rural housing thing with DeWine to potentially develop the infrastructure out there for buildable lots. He's very interested in that. So I'm asking economic development to further look into that. I don't know if there's any deadlines with the DeWine program, but I just hate to see us miss out on an opportunity.
Yep.
To add what Kurt brought up, the lot size, most of those lots I think are back from when that allotment was originally laid out, probably in the 30s, possibly post-war. So most of those lots are 40 by 135, I think, or 138. So most of the houses that can be put on those lots, most of the lots would have to be consolidated, 2 or 3 lots into one parcel. And then the zoning requirements for side yard setbacks and the restrictions on square footage would have to be adjusted. Most likely probably switch to R3 requirements instead of the R1, R2. So that's just something that will have to be looked at moving forward on that. Currently, I do believe it's R1.
I should have some time next week to get with you guys to talk about this a little more. And if we need, we can include you on it too if you want.
Please.
Have some more insight on the zoning for those areas. Have any more public participation for economic development?
Clarissa Slater, 3645 State Route 4. Miranda, has the open projects list been updated to the referrals from, is this on the agenda?
It's not on the open projects list now.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that it was referred then, because I don't think we're supposed to be or it's not supposed to be discussed if it's not on the list, correct?
They can hear it, but it can't be discussed.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
Have any more public participation for economic development? Seeing none, we'll move to the approval of minutes from February 20th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 20th, 2025 regular Economic Development Committee meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Have a motion by Ms. Sherrick, a second by Mr. Moritz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Do you have anything on open projects we wish to discuss?
I do not.
I do not either.
All right. Moving on to public participation for the final time.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. So this is for Mr. Hickman here. What's going on with the JED, the Joint Economic Development District? This has been going on for over a year now. Have any letters been sent out, phone calls made on this?
I have to meet with the new director to see what's being done on his end. I have not reached out to him yet.
Okay. The housing in the city of Bucyrus was brought up the other night. And what is being done to improve this with the partnership? I mean, since January of 2024.
From what I know, they had some land evaluation and some loose appraisals, but from my understanding, not much came out of that.
So as you as the city rep for the city of Bucyrus and as chairman of the Economic Development Committee, what have you done since you took office to help the city out?
May I call a point of order?
Please.
Absolutely.
Well, then I can just read it then. I'm allowed to read.
After I've had my point of order. My point of order is, this question has been repeatedly asked of Mr. Hickman. I mean, he's responded to it every time it's been asked. Do we have to continually be subjected to, I'm looking at you, Mr. Law Director. I'm sorry.
No.
No, we do not.
No.
Okay. So we can just stop that conversation?
Correct.
Okay, then I can move on with my speech then, correct, Mr. Law Director?
As long as it pertains to the agenda.
Okay. Well, it's on open projects. All this is under open projects. Everything I'm talking about is under open projects. So since we didn't get a clear picture from the number of jobs that were created in 2024 and what the partnership's doing in this area, has there been any improvement in creating jobs for the city of Bucyrus with this partnership? As Mr. Hickman just said, they do have an interim director. And that, well, I've already brought up about the funding, so I'll keep on going. But the thing is that all that has been ever stated during economic development is basically no reports. So I went back through, and this is public record. So since January 2024, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 meetings where nothing was accomplished in 2024. And as far as this year, since January's meetings, we've had nothing. The Tourism Bureau come in on the 23rd, and we've had nothing and nothing. Why are the citizens of the city not being addressed of what economic development is doing for the residents and the overall improvement of the city? Thank you.
Have you gone to the partnership and asked them directly your questions? It would appear that they would be the ones more to answer.
Well, we have a city representative here that is supposed to be attending the meetings, right, Mrs. DeShawn? He's supposed to come back to council with reports, correct?
It should
Yep.
also be made aware that economic development is not something that can happen at the flick of a wrist, Mr. White.
Well, no, it can't be, but at least we can be informed of what's going on in the partnership and everything else during these meetings.
That's what the quarterly reports from them are for.
Well,
Correct.
but you're going to all these other meetings with them. Why aren't we being addressed with these issues and problems or what's being done? It doesn't have to be, I think the mayor said it, certain priorities that they don't want to give out certain information of the businesses and stuff. I understand that. But at least we could get some knowledge of something that's going on instead of nothing all the time. Thank you.
Any more public participation for economic development? Seeing none, adjourn at 6:10 p.m.
Planning Committee, March 6, 2025.
Platting Committee will come to order at 6:12. Members are Sierra and Sherrick, Kevin Myers, Vicky DeShawn, James Me, Chair. First of all, is public participation.
Kurt Fankhauser, 1415 Michigan Drive. I have some printouts I'm going to hand out to the 4 Platting Committee members. I apologize, I forgot to print one for you, Mike, but you can have mine after I'm done.
Thank you.
All right. So, the general resurfacing with, as pertaining to should the concrete or blacktop be 100% always required, I took a trip over to Upper Sandusky and I was just looking at, some of the latest businesses that have went in over there. And the most recent being Ag Pro, which is the John Deere dealer. And, the very first picture, I'm not going to go through every picture in this, I'm just going to highlight on some. Like the very first one, the entrance to that property has a concrete approach, which that's covered by our right-of-way permit, which the service director issues. So I agree, concrete should be at the approach for trucks turning in so that they don't pulverize the entrance. And then, further in, they have the retail parking lot for customers, it's blacktop. But then when you get out in the back, where all the equipment is stored in the fenced-in area, you have stone. Now, I think that if that was required to be blacktop, you got multiple issues with that. The heavy equipment is going to destroy that blacktop. It's not going to last. So, to have the stone there actually makes more sense. And just another one here. This is another business down the street. It's a New Holland dealership. Same situation. They got the concrete approach connecting the road to their private property. But then once you get within the private property, it turns into a stone situation. And, just like, for example, they got a couple tracked excavators there. If you have blacktop there and you're trying to move that equipment around, it's just going to rip the blacktop up and destroy it. So, to 100% of the time always require, you got to have stone in some situation. It makes sense. They actually have a business on the same road there. They actually have millings. They don't even have the bluestone. They have allowed millings to be it appears to be a drive-through, on-the-go drive-through. Now, there is a picture there that shows they have millings going all the way out to the road in that particular one, and they don't have a concrete approach, which you could see where the millings would start to be an issue with vehicles turning in and out. So this is another one, stone, this WMS place behind McDonald's. But, I reached out to the engineer, the city's engineer, and one of the concerns was grit getting into the sewers and the sanitary storm. And so I started looking around at areas that don't have any stone nearby at all. Like, this one's out here in front of True Value, or the old True Value, I'd say, sorry, we're now. there's grit in the street right now, and there's no stone anywhere near this. So you're going to have a grit problem even when you don't have the stone. And just for comparison, I did go around and find a couple other like stone parking lots out there by producers and ag credit. And yeah, it doesn't appear that the stone is putting more grit into the roadway any more than like the downtown with the grit off you're going to get grit from the asphalt stuff breaking up on its own naturally. And this out here at the soccer fields on Lane Street, if we're going to make this argument that we got to have the stone or the blacktop or concrete 100% everywhere, I question why it's not a requirement on residential, because you're actually going to have more residential surface area citywide than the commercial side. So
the entry of a driveway is supposed to be concrete.
right. And what I'm saying is why, and that should apply to both residential and commercial, but why go further into the private property on the business side once you're past that concrete approach, and why still require the concrete in there? Because I'm not, the engineer told me, I asked him, I said, well, how much is this affecting the clean out and vacuuming of the sewer grates and stuff? He's like, well, I can't put an exact number on it, but whether it's a couple of % of the overall vacuuming of the storm sewers and stuff. It might be contributing a little, but it's not, in my opinion, worth this requirement that may prevent a business from coming in.
Now, who said this to you?
This was Dylan Wyatt Engineering,
Okay.
McKeever, and there's an email chain going around. If you want it, I can forward it to you.
I think you did.
Yeah.
I already forwarded it to you. So like this Ag Pro, if that whole back end of that property was required to be asphalt or blacktop, I'm just going to guess and say they would have had another $750,000 in that property. And then it would continually be a maintenance issue for them because the heavier equipment's going to chew it up. There's one other one. I did notice Manel Milling out there on Nevada Road. It does look like there is an issue out there with the stone where the heavy trucks are pulling out onto the road. It's all getting pulverized and but then again, they also don't have the concrete approach, which if the concrete approach was there, would probably eliminate that problem. So where I'm at with it is continue to require on the driveway permitting, the right-of-way entrance permit with the safety service director issues, continue to require the concrete there, which I don't even think that's by ordinance. I think that's just been done by the administration's specifications. But then once you get beyond that into the private property, allow through a BZA request and a hearing to make a determination of, okay, are we going to force this business to blacktop or concrete the whole thing, or give them a way to make something else? Because like I said here, I think there's going to be situations that the stone actually does make better sense.
So first of all, the staging area for these machines back here, I don't think we're talking about that. We're talking about parking areas. In Upper Sandusky, 1131.01, off-street parking, any parking space for a business use, if in an open, must be paved with a hard or dustless, dust-proof surface. Now, that's what Uppers has got on the books over there. So,
Well, if that's the way you want to go, if you want to differentiate between parking space and like staging area for stuff, I would highly recommend that you very clearly define that difference in the ordinance. Because as some of these ordinances are worded right now, it's just kind of like who's reading them and what mood they're in that day as to how you feel like the ordinance reads. I've always thought these ordinance on zoning, especially with the parking lot stuff, has been kind of, because like, for example, the hard dustless surface that we've always had in our ordinance, it reads durable hard dustless surface, and doesn't mention anything about gravel or stone, but practice over the last 20 years has been, well, we're gonna just call that the blue stone.
So
But it doesn't actually say in there the blue stone.
But that's why we're trying to define it. I mean, this ordinance is already on our books. We're just trying to define it on what McKeevers want,
In a parking
what
lot.
zoning wants.
A parking lot for a trucking company, if a trucking company wants to come in and you're calling that a parking lot as opposed to a retail storefront parking lot, I think there needs to be a difference defined there as well, because customers pulling in and going into a retail store is a whole different scenario parking lot wise than trucking company parking tractor trailers parking lot wise. I think the parking lots for tractor trailers should be allowed to have I believe millings. I think we should allow millings. It's obviously going on over in Upper. They have at least one new business with millings over there. And I think the millings makes a very nice surface that it actually compacts better than the stone once you start driving on it.
Okay.
So the stones, you gotta go in and regrade them all the time if you're, stuff like that. So that's all I got to say on it.
Thank you.
So Kurt, you're saying you have to regrade the stone all the time? Wouldn't it be easier for it just to be paved? And you're comparing a highway business zoning district in Upper to general business parking lots here in town. You cannot compare a tractor dealership, heavy equipment yard to a parking lot for a general business here in town. There's no comparison.
So you guys are saying we want all commercial in Bucyrus to be the same way. The planning commission said we're going to differentiate the downtown business district zoning, and then that came out of planning commission that way, and then now it's changed in something that's totally different than what the planning commission voted on. I say leave it how the planning commission voted it out as.
It says for it to be paved. That's the way it's written already.
You know what? If you guys want to run all the businesses out of this town, go ahead and do it. I'll be the first one to leave. Okay. My business is going to be out of this town if you guys put this in.
Please do. Oh my God.
We're just talking about it. Any more public participation?
Gary Daiber, 1928 Marion Road. Just quickly, I mentioned the other night about asphalt millings. Well, I called the gentleman that puts them down up in Norwalk. Did you talk to them yet? Riley Asphalt. And what they are using is they're using millings and they're using shingles, shredded shingles. And he said there's quite a bit of it done around Erie County and up around Norwalk. And it's about 40% of the cost of asphalt or concrete. So I just thought I'd relay that for anybody who might be interested, but I'm looking at that for my property on doing some of mine because it looks like a real cost-effective way to do it. And they say they roll that in, it's just like road, you can plow snow over the top of it and don't tear it up or hurt anything. So just food for thought.
Thank you.
Clarissa?
Yes. Clarissa Slater, 3645 State Route 4. So I don't like people feeling like they're not being heard. So my thought was looking at some of the properties that Kurt had brought up previously. I know he was discussing some general business area out towards the highway. And so I'm just even questioning if they're zoned properly. or, I know it's you have an entire ad hoc, correct, for zoning?
Yes.
Okay, so I feel like this conversation could be taken to that, to where the pavement requirement doesn't have to be sacrificed for those properties that we're discussing to be reevaluated under maybe a different zoning code, because it could essentially be like limited industrial or another zoning code that would allow it and would be practical for the space. Because I know he said there was something about acres of land that was zoned as general business, and I was trying to find it on the map, but my only thought is that there's a way to find a compromise here. And like Mike said, I pulled up the upper map. They have different zoning codes that we don't even have, like highway business. So you could even consider something like that to be added, to where the downtown business that is centralized around residential properties isn't being sacrificed, or is not, the issues with having gravel could be still addressed without having to sacrifice the requirement. But that's just, from listening, that's what I've gathered, that maybe that there's still a way to find like a compromise there.
And Clarissa, that's what we're here for. I mean, this isn't in stone.
Right.
We're still discussing it.
Well, there's I know, I'm just saying that.
Nobody can get upset about it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not okay to get upset, but just listening to both sides of the argument, my thought is Kurt's concerns can still be addressed through how we are zoning that property, instead of it sacrificing like our general business, looking at and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I was looking at it, looks like the majority of it is centralized towards the main drag on Sandusky, but then we have, the branch out on Marion Road. Kurt's property for Wavelength looks like it's general business, but directly across from it is general industrial. So it's like, could there be that move to like limited industrial, or these properties that he has concerns of, maybe they could be reconsidered in a different zoning code. That was my thought. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more public participation? All right, first up on the list, BCO 119.03, general resurfacing. Kevin, I'd like to hear from you.
I maintain my position that I still think that there needs to be an alternative. So if you want it to say that, we're going to require this, no two cases are ever going to be alike. So to allow the BZA or whomever you feel to be able to look at a case-by-case situation and say, in this instance, that doesn't make sense. Let's change the requirements. There needs to be an out, is what I'm looking for. I get what you've said before, where you want to make our community more attractive. And I applaud that. We need that. We also need the jobs. And so in the instance, and I know I'm not trying to compare apples to oranges and things like that, but I'm going to use one of the examples that Kurt brought up. You look at this tractor dealer, and in that instance, if they were made, and I know this isn't exactly what we're talking about, but my point is if they were made to have concreted or paved the whole thing, they probably, Kurt said, it would have been another $500,000 or $750,000. No, they probably wouldn't have opened the damn business. That's what we need to make sure doesn't happen.
I want to make sure that a staging area isn't applied to this too. So.
Yeah, my whole point is no two businesses are alike.
How can we take a piece of legislation and move it and maintain it to every situation that might come along?
You can't. That's why you have to have an out in there. You have to have, somebody can review it and make a decision on a case-by-case basis. I don't think that we can take one piece of paper and say it's going to apply to anything and everything that ever comes to town. It just not. It doesn't work.
I say an example right here in town would be the Sunoco station at the north end, Sunset or whatever it's called, where they park trucks out back.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Gotcha.
so out back, there's a gravel lot.
Right.
Because semi-drivers use that, but that would be an exception at that point. So here's the rule, however you can go to the BZA and explain, and they'll say this is how to do it. So yes, your front lot is done and your apron, but that back lot would be gravel or millings, and it'd be specific.
Okay.
So that's the out that everybody keeps asking for, that, you know, we need to have it so there's a way to have the exceptions, because there are a lot of exceptions to the rule.
Okay. Vicky's shuffling papers. Go ahead.
No, I'm just pulling out our last draft ordinance to have it in front of me. Oh, you're looking at me to...
I think he's waiting on you.
Oh,
to straighten your-
no, I don't have anything to say.
Okay.
Surprise, surprise.
So, all right.
And we did decide millings was a dustless surface because it compacts into a thing, correct?
Dustless, yes, that is a dustless surface.
That was one of the ones, the hard dustless
So
surface. So is blue stones.
It is, but it's just like Kurt said when he talked to Jeff, that they're afraid that that'll crumble up and get into the sewer and the, no, not the sewer, it'd be the runoff. Storm sewer, yeah, thank you. So,
But did you see the pictures?
I seen them. And what Upper's got going for it, they got 2 4-lane highways, 23 and
Sure.
30. And they're always gonna have that advantage over
But in
us
these nice
until,
paved areas,
until route,
stone everywhere.
until route, yeah. Okay. Until we get Route 4 or 98 or 1900 to turn into 4-lane highways, we're still gonna be at a disadvantage over Upper as far as bringing businesses in. So let's table this, and maybe we can have Brandon rewrite this. Utilize.
But I was gonna say, it just needs some tweaking, not full rewriting.
Cool.
So,
So we'll just table it for now.
Comment to this.
Go ahead.
So are we going to end up basically making the case for parking requirements to go by zoning district, or I thought this was gonna be for any business parking lot in town? Was that our intention of having it paved or concreted? Or now?
Parking areas. That was our
Yeah,
intention.
Parking lots,
Parking lots,
yeah.
not staging areas for equipment or stuff
Well,
like that.
well, then, that, a general business parking lot, you cannot compare that to the staging area for like Eagle Crusher, which basically is the same lot as a tractor dealership.
Your suggestion is to go, let's go back to downtown business area and make this piece of legislation for downtown business areas and strike the other out, and if we need another ordinance for that, then we come up with that ordinance.
But then you have all these general business, neighborhood business districts in town that you require parking lots to be paved.
So having this on the books and putting, however, depending on your specific needs, looking at a case by case, you can apply for a variance to this,
Through the BZA.
to the BZA. And,
Okay.
you know, something like that. So we can have all this and then have that addendum as part of it. However, we understand not all businesses are alike. And if you have specific needs and it works, we can do this. It's a win-win at that point, because people can come in and be like, no, here's what I'm saying though. I've got these semi-trucks will be parked out back, or I've got this, big equipment that we're going to be selling, and, think these sorts of things, that makes a lot of sense.
So
Okay.
do we have anything on the books right now that if I'm required to have a paved parking lot, is there anything on the books about the maintenance of that paved parking lot?
That definitely needs to be.
I don't think there is. I looked and I didn't see anything.
I don't think so.
Mike, do you know if there is?
I've never seen anything.
So let's talk about this for a second.
That needs in there.
I think the rules for maintenance of a private parking lot, that's the property owner's responsibility, or business owner.
Okay, so when the Southern Light Shopping Center was built, let's talk about that parking lot right now. You could lose a car in some of those holes right now, right? And so why do you think the guy's not fixing it? Well, because of the cost of it. If he wasn't required to have that be a paved lot, maybe he'd bring some more stone in and fill the, I'm just saying there's other things to think about as far as the finances go that aren't our finances. It's the finances of these businesses that we're asking to come here and employ people. That's just another thought I have, that, we can have that requirement now, and what happens, I know that place was built in late 60s, early 70s. And part of it, I don't think, has been repaved since then.
Yes, it was just repaved.
Part of it.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now what do we do? We'll try to take some things out of this and put some things back in, make everybody happy, I guess. If you guys have any, please email me, because I'm lost here, so. I have what the administration is wanting, I have what the business is wanting, and I hear you guys talking. So I want to get at something. I can't please everybody.
Right.
But I want to do the best I can with what I have to work with, so. All right, that's tabled, correct? Any objections?
No.
Planning Commission letter. Bucyrus City Council, the Bucyrus City Planning Commission met on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. It is requested that the following items approved by the Planning Commission be submitted to the appropriate council committees. Proposed establishment of codified ordinance BCO 1193.01 authorizing the location for an adult use medical marijuana facilities. The Planning Commission approved the draft legislation with the proposed modifications that the ordinance chapter number be changed to one that is available. The proposed legislation for the solar panels had already been presented as BCO 1193. Can we discuss this? How's this? The letter has been forwarded to this committee. Has the legislation been brought back to the committee?
Correct.
So we can discuss it?
Correct. Yeah, it's an open project.
Okay.
And we referred it.
So is there anything else?
So do you have a draft with the new updates that they're asking for yet?
Not yet.
Okay. So I would like to just ask for draft legislation with the changes that the Planning Commission has suggested so that we can hopefully pass it on.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Aaron?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Approved for council with the ordinance chapter number changed.
No, I want draft legislation to come back to this committee, and then we can push it into council. I want to see it come back to this committee for us to approve it, to move it on.
Yes.
That was your motion?
Yeah, for draft legislation to come here.
Okay, for draft legislation to come back here.
Yeah.
If we do that, then it has to go back to the planning committee.
How so? The planning committee just
Requested us to-
sent us their
We just
changes.
changed what they requested.
So nothing new is being added?
You're changing the numbers essentially.
Okay, then that's good to go.
We're good?
Yep.
All right, then it'll come back
But
to
you guys didn't want any other changes other than that, did you?
All right.
I guess if that's the case, can I amend my,
Would you please recommend your motion?
yeah, I'd like to request legislation with the said changes so that it can be just moved to council, since that's the only change.
Okay, I'll second that.
And all we were asking for is maybe you would rename it 1194, or something to that effect.
Okay.
Okay. You don't have to go to a public hearing.
Because of the new number?
Because it's an amendment to the zoning code.
Oh,
Well, yeah, we haven't had the public
that's right,
hearing
we didn't
yet.
have it on that one.
Right.
So instead of going to full council, we would need to schedule a public hearing.
Fair enough. Can we schedule that now?
Sure.
Well, how long is it gonna be till I get the?
We have to give 30 days notice, correct?
Yeah, but
So why
I
don't-
would also have to have the.
So why don't we look
currently
40,
ready.
let's look 45 days plus ahead.
That's fine.
15 days enough time to?
Yeah, that's fine.
What you got, Miranda?
Pulling up my calendar right now.
Counting the days.
So the week of April 21 and on.
I know that we have nothing the week of the 21st or the week of the 28th into May. That's our double no council weeks, so.
Pick a day. It's your show.
It's up to you guys. I'm fine with any of those days that are within the week.
April 22nd, 5 o'clock.
We have a council meeting on that night.
Nope, on the 15th.
On the 15th.
Oh. I must have put my calendar wrong.
So what day are we looking at?
So we're April 22nd,
Yeah, we can do that.
5 o'clock, is that good? Aaron?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have a public hearing, April 22nd, 5 PM. Okay. What do we got? The vacation of Pleasant Hill Drive. Alley vacation. So you want to table that? You want to talk about it?
Rick, you want to, what breaks the podium for first?
Well, we're not on public participation.
Hold on. Give us a second, Greg.
Okay, Avita Healthcare approached us about, they're looking to expand their medical campus and moving their rehab facility from Hopley to behind the hospital.
So they're building a brand-new facility, right?
Yeah, they are looking to build a facility off Pleasant Hill Drive and Hill Street behind the existing hospital. And right now they're proposing to vacate Pleasant Hill Drive and put a alternate street connecting where the ending point of Pleasant Hill Drive is over to Plants Way. And this is just a rendering of what they're proposed so far. We've already reviewed it preliminary and had some suggestions for them. But this is just a preliminary of what they're thinking about. Nothing is concrete yet.
Okay.
So we're
So
just-
they want to vacate the north end of Pleasant Hill Drive.
Yeah. It's approximately 380 feet they want to vacate, which would be in the middle of the adjoining property to the south.
380 by 12, right?
The existing pavement right away out there is 16 foot wide.
16.
It's the narrowest right of way in town, but that's a standard width for an alley. Is 16, well, anywhere from 12 and a half to 16 and a half feet wide.
So when we vacate that, this is a street, not an alley though, is it the same rules?
Well, there are city utilities in through there, and through that corridor. So The utilities would stay.
So do we maintain ownership of that with the right-of-way for them, an easement?
Once they vacate it, we still have the utilities.
Saying the ownership of the actual land that the street's on. Who owns it when this is all said and done? Us or them?
Hospital.
And we're just giving it to them, or are we selling it to them?
That's a good question.
I mean, we just sold a piece of property about the same size for $40,000 to somebody else.
But they're also going to be building a alternate street between Pleasant Hill and Plants Way.
Okay, that seems like a fair.
And they would be paying for that.
And then would
street to put in.
they turn that over to us?
Yes.
Okay, that's a fair trade.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not well at reading maps. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to figure out, what does this do to, are there people that live? Okay,
This is the existing hospital.
okay, the hospital
This
right
is
here.
that parking lot across from the ER. There's no houses here anymore.
There are no houses in between
So
Gotcha,
that's vacant land.
Pleasant
right
Hill and Plants
gotcha,
Way.
okay,
Pleasant Hills comes down.
okay, I
The
got it now.
hospital, Vicki, the hospital owns everything between Pleasant Hill and Plants Way.
Okay,
So they're building an alternative road from Plants Way down to Pleasant Hill.
so I mean, the people that are over here that
It's
normally.
gonna come out here.
Okay,
The
That's
new
the
street
trade-off.
that we'd like them to put in would make it easier for fire and trash and city plowing and services to gain access to Pleasant Hill Drive South.
just out of curiosity, has there been any talk with the residents,
Not yet.
letting them know, you know, what's being proposed?
Avita has already been in contact with all the adjoining property owners.
Excuse me?
Avita has already been
Okay.
in contact with them.
Okay, great, great.
Do we have to go through like a public hearing type of a deal where those people,
That is down the road.
but is that a requirement at some point?
For street vacation,
believe
yes,
it
it
is.
is.
I just,
200 feet or something.
it ought to be, because I mean, hell, we have to send letters out and have meetings about people that want to put up a fence. Here we're changing a street.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys have any other questions? Okay.
What's the kind of timeline on this? I mean,
We don't know. Avita did not give me an idea of what their timeline is.
So we're pretty much on hold until we get a set of plans, right? You guys go
Yes.
through them.
Yeah.
we don't want to proceed with vacating that until you have an agreement.
No,
time
because we
with them.
don't know the whole length
Yeah.
and area that they're doing.
Okay. So this needs to be tabled.
Yes,
You
sir.
this is an informational thing. Vacation Valley, open projects, anything? Public participation.
Great White Planning Commission. The Planning Commission was hoping that Mr. Myers's thing would be an emergency, because it was brought up in the Planning Commission that a Senate bill has passed here in the state of Ohio, that it could restrict the number of dispensaries in the state of Ohio. It has gone to the House now, okay? If it goes to the House and gets accepted, we could possibly lose out totally on these two projects, okay?
And if we passed it ahead of time, we could be grandfathered in?
Yes. Okay? So I just wanted to bring that was my point to bring to this committee was, and I know that some people don't like emergency legislation, but we discussed
It has its place.
But it does have its place, and we discussed it, and it was the consensus of the Planning Commission to have you guys, and maybe it wasn't conveyed good enough or whatever, but, yeah, but to make this emergency legislation, because if this gets passed in the House, and the governor signs it, 90 days it becomes law, okay? And we could lose out totally 100% on all of this.
Is there the possibility, because we have this 30-day time frame or whatever, we have no control over.
Well, I
No.
think what he's asking is that here's the thing, I had no idea that that existed.
Yep.
The letter didn't ask for it to be an emergency.
I understand that. That's why
So
I came. that's
I
why
have
came.
no problem amending and I'm going to, as soon as you're done. That kind of fixes the potential problem that could exist.
That could exist. That's all I'm bringing to the point is that it's already in the House now. If it passes, the governor could sign it and it becomes a law and within 90 days under state constitution.
I'd like to amend my.
Thank you.
Just a little more discussion here, because we have a date coming up here. We still have a public hearing, April 22nd, so is that going to conflict?
Yeah, it has to go to the public
Emergency?
hearing.
Right.
As long as, I believe, what I believe, and you can ask Brandon this, but if it's in before, everything is done before the law goes into effect, we should be grandfathered, correct?
Something I can look into.
Okay?
Yeah, so we can't request it as emergency yet until after the public hearing, is what I.
Okay.
So that does make sense.
Okay.
Does that mean that we can ask Brandon if he can do it in less than 15 days?
Yeah, and maybe have the public hearing on the 15th prior to the council meeting. And then this committee has to meet then too. If we're worried about the timeline, we can see how things are going at the state level, but I think if we're worried about the timeline, we could have the public hearing and then have a quick committee meeting prior to the council meeting all on that day, if it looks like the timeline is getting crunched. If it doesn't look like it's getting crunched, we can wait until the next week's meetings after the public hearing.
Okay.
We've got
So, see,
advertise.
Good.
You only have to give 24 hours notice to advertise.
No, the public hearing. and then
The
30
public
days.
hearing, we could do the public hearing do it on the 15th instead of the 22nd, is what I'm suggesting. And what that does, that's set in stone. If it appears that things are moving along the wrong direction at the state level, we can schedule a Platting Committee meeting before the council meeting
Okay.
to request the legislation to be brought before council at that meeting on the 15th, if it comes to be needed to be that quick. So am I saying what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I'd hate to see us lose an opportunity here to get this legislation passed and then be denied because this is what happened. That's all I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brandon, would it be possible for you to get that to me by Monday? Because I would have to
Yes.
post it absolutely at the latest on Monday to have it on
Can
the 15th.
get it to you on Monday.
Okay.
So that I understand what's going on here. We are doing what again? When are we having a
I'm
public
asking
hearing?
if we could change the public hearing from the 22nd to the 15th
At 5.
at 5 PM. That's the first step.
Okay, and that is,
The city council meeting.
We have a council
That's
meeting at
fine.
7.
okay,
If the state is moving forward with that in a quick fashion, we could schedule, and we would know a couple days ahead of time, if we need to or not, we could schedule a special platting meeting immediately after the public hearing, prior to the council meeting.
Okay.
And then if the platting moves it on to full council, then full council could vote on it as an emergency
Right.
on the evening of the 15th and get it done if we need to.
so your request tonight could ask for emergency legislation to be prepared.
Pending the public hearing.
Right. I mean, in other words, the legislation that we will post out there on the zoning window will be emergency legislation. Okay, great, understand, gotcha. Okay.
So Kevin has amended his.
Give me 1 second. Is it going to change anything here? Okay, just give me 1 second. You were
So
gonna-
I'd like to amend it to
Amend the
ask
motion.
that I am making a motion requesting emergency legislation pending the outcome of the public hearing,
Be drafted.
be drafted and ready to go.
And I'm amending my second to go with that.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yes.
Yes.
Kevin? Vicki?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, we got that solved, right? I'll be on the 15th. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Logan Beeman, Freeware. Just a minor annoyance that I see it happening all the time now. But if I wanted to sue somebody because they said something mean about me on Facebook, Mr. Gobrick, would you suggest I do it pro se? Or would you suggest I hire someone that went to law school for 8 years or for 4 years and has a college degree?
I'm not giving you legal advice.
Well, and if Mr. Frizzell here fell over, clutching his chest, would I push you off, Kevin, and do CPR because I watched The Office one time, where Dwight gives him the dull CPR?
Yeah, what's
My point is I just see
relevant
people
to the
coming up
Platting
here.
Committee, sir?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
I see people coming up here and acting like they are experts on things all the time, and I feel bad for Mike, who's presumably very educated and has answered a lot of these questions, and I just think it's okay to have an opinion, but I think he's answered a lot of these questions already, and I think it's just worrisome when we continue to have the same debates every single week.
So you're talking about the general
I'm
resurfacing?
talking about the resurfacing, but it's more a general point, I guess. Just that we are questioning experts, or so to speak, and
Oh, we get that all the time.
well,
So
just
we're used to it.
Yeah, well, but my understanding is that it's legislation that already is on the books. You're just trying to define
Amend
it.
Yes.
Okay.
Clarify it.
Yeah, I don't
that's
think
the word.
there's anything wrong with that in theory, yeah.
With the old legislation, there is a lot of room. It doesn't define certain areas, and we'd like to make it specify certain areas.
Right.
And it started, then it grew, then it's like, wait a minute, we need to step back here and take a look at it again.
Mhm.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
Okay.
Thank you. Public participation. Meeting adjourned at 6, what would you say, 58?
Service Committee, March 6, 2025.
Service Committee's come to order, 6:59 PM.
Bless you.
Members present, Sierra and Sherrick, Kevin Myers, Zion Hickman, I myself Chair, Chris Moritz. At this time, is there any public participation?
Kurt Fankhauser, 1415 Michigan Drive. Are we talking about the general bond issuing in the Service Committee? Or Finance Committee? Okay. The South Sandusky water line, were you guys gonna talk about that one too? Because if you were, I wanted to come back up during when
That's
that.
gonna be tabled for tonight.
That's gonna get tabled. Okay, are you talking about the airport terminal building?
Yes, we're gonna talk about that tonight.
Okay, so can I come back up when you talk about that? Because that's all I wanted to talk about then, the airport terminal building.
Yeah, you can do that when we bring it up.
Okay, so you'll let me come back up?
But yeah, during the, after public participation next one, you can do that right after that. After we do local projects. Don't we need to talk about it now, we can do it later.
So, I'm sorry?
We can do it later, I mean, public participation after open projects.
Well, okay, I might as well just talk about it now. So I had Miranda put in the packet the conceptual plan for the airport terminal, what the airport commission and their design company had came up with. So what I think needs to happen tonight is just airport commission bringing this to service committee, since service committee oversees the airport, You guys just need to sign off on the conceptual plan, and then Finance Committee's gonna have to request legislation to put out to bid.
Correct.
So that's all you guys need to do with it.
Any more public participation? Seeing none, moving on to South Sandusky Water Line Project. That is going to be tabled or not ready to table or talk about that yet?
Can I ask a question and make a statement? I know I kind of said something to Tommy today at the hall, but I kind of want to make sure I go on the record to say this. I know we were discussing whether or not we were going to do the project or not because of the funds and everything. And I've heard both sides of the argument. I want it to be looked at that if we do it when ODOT does the resurfacing and rebuilds the roadway is already dug up, right? And if we choose to wait, we're looking at another 10 to 12 years until ODOT comes in and does that again. At which point we're said, well, we could just leave the water lines that are there now. Wait that long, right? But they're gonna do the sewer portion, at which point they have to move some of these water lines anyway during that time frame. And, was it yesterday or today? We had a water line break there.
Yesterday.
Aged water lines, some of those are that, what was the name of the material?
Cast iron.
Oh, I thought you said it was the other one.
It's not a transite.
Okay. So it's older material. I think that I just want us as a city and the administration to take a hard look at this, that, yeah, we might have to borrow the money through a bond, which looks poor right now, right, because of the situation that we're in. I would rather borrow that money on a short-term bond right now and pay for it at 2025 or 2026 costs to do the project, even if we have to pay a little bit extra to finance that, than pushing it off another 10 to 12 years. What are the costs going to be in 2036?
I would say, and the last time that we did that, we weren't on here, but the state redid an entire road, and it was a week later, we had a massive water line break. Several weeks after getting that done, there was a gas issue, and the whole gas line had to be dug up in that road, and it was, everything that they'd done completely got destroyed, and we ended up with a really messed up road.
So I don't want it to appear that we're being frivolous with just, oh, we'll take out a loan for this and a loan for that. In this instance, I just want to really state my opinion and go on the record to say, this, I believe, is a good time to borrow some money. And the difference is we're going to talk about in Finance Committee, we'll learn the difference between a general obligation bond for stuff that's already happened and a bond anticipation note for things going forward. We can do that on a shorter term and pay it off in 1 or 2 years, which we can talk more about later. I just want, that, my point out there, that I think this is something we really don't want to put off because it's going to cost more in the long run.
I'm in agreement with you too on that.
It'll cost a lot more.
Way, way more.
Well, may I speak?
Yes.
Okay, right now Tommy went ahead and talked to John Ernsberger today, and it's a continuing discussion right now of what the water line, right now we've identified, 33 breaks in the last 20 years.
On that section.
10 years.
10 years.
33 water breaks. So, I mean, that's something that you can't hardly overlook. But in the meantime, so to give credit to Kaylee, it's something that we need to look at. I mean, we still have to reevaluate. Right now, we sat down and talked to the engineer, and he stated that not so sure that they can get the project done in the duration, the timeline that the state's asking for. It might have to go in and bring in larger contractors, but Tommy's going to have another discussion tomorrow. And Monday. Monday.
Yep.
And so he'll be meeting with John Ernsberger, and he's also going to be meeting with Dylan Wyatt from McKeever and Associates. And so, I mean, they'll further refine and bring us all back to you. Bring it back to you first, so.
And I just wanted to add, are you done, Bruce? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt.
I'm done.
Okay. I just wanted to add to that, I was talking to the woman who's doing our sorry, didn't mean to hit the microphone for the viewers at home. For those, she's doing our rate study, and she brought up the fact that right now, until the rate study is completed, we may have to increase rates to even be at a level where we maintain what the operation of the water fund is costing us. So on top of that, we have to then consider the payment of this bond. And then on top of that, we might have to increase rates even further to pay for the 1.5 million bond to redo the water line project on Sandusky. So I think that was something they wanted to consider as well, is just how much the citizens could afford to have their water rates increased. And I think that's why we just want to take a deeper look into it. And then we were also discussing, I know it came up when we were talking to the state auditor's office about doing it all in one to pay for bond counsel. So it's cheaper for bond counsel, but is it better to kind of get the water rate study underway, see what's going on with that, and then if we have to pay for bond counsel twice, we just do that instead of pay for it now? Just, different things we were considering. I went John Ernsberger, I asked him specifically over the last 5 years, how many water line breaks were there? And he said 7. So I don't know if it's decreasing or, so just looking into things a little bit more before we pull the trigger on anything. And that's why we're looking into things a little bit further and not just discussing it all tonight, though it's on the agendas. Does that make sense? That's it.
And to go right along with it, the proposed water line that we were talking about here a couple weeks ago on Southern Avenue, it was determined by the engineer that we should forego that project, so.
Yeah, that was not capped off for now, right? Right. Okay, well, we'll table that one for now then. Airport terminal, which Kurt brought up already for us. Terminal building, everybody has the rendering in their packets, they should, and a timeline that we need to have this put forth to council to get the grants to have this terminal project move forward, so Tommy can get it and get it out for bids. I'm looking to get a motion made to send this to financing so we can get rolling down the road with it.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and send the airport terminal stuff to finance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Any open projects anybody else wants to talk about? Seeing none, public participation?
Kurt Fankhauser, same address. I do agree with Kevin on this South Sandusky water line. ODOT got about 10 years out of that last paving going through there, and how many water line breaks, if we do nothing with that line in the next 10 years, are we going to have? And I hear it all the time. People, they'll say, oh, they pave a road, and then next thing you know, they're tearing it back up again to go do a water line or a sewer line project. So, I understand Kaylee saying the concern of how much can the citizens afford, but when you're chasing breaks, that's costing money too. So, and I do want to say that emphasis needs to be done on upgrading the infrastructure, whether it's water lines, sewer lines, stormwater lines, anything, because this stuff doesn't get upgraded overnight. This stuff is a long process. You have engineering that has to be done. You have going out to bid, then you have to deal with the contractors. You gotta constantly be on these projects. And I don't know if you remember seeing in the news here a month or so ago, but there was a water line break in Galleon right downtown that severely flooded out some of the businesses down there. And that's what happens when you defer maintenance and upgrades on stuff, is you end up having these catastrophic breaks in the decades following. So I commend our mayor for realizing that this is something that potentially needs done and just not kicking it. You know, he could be taking the easy way out right now and doing nothing and just, you know, keeping the rates low and stuff, but making these investments in city infrastructure now, long-term, is the best for the citizens.
I just wanted to
Just so you got a little bit of history of the water line. After our meeting today with Kevin and Kurt and after our talking to bond council, we asked John Ernsberger after the meeting was over what the age of that water line was on South Sandusky Street, and he says it's over 100 years old. So you guys have an idea how old that water line actually is.
Bruce, and if it is cast, it's probably got the good old lead and how they used to seal them up back in the old days.
Correct.
Which nobody wants in their water.
I think too, just for the public to know, Mayor, the one thing that was explained to us in our meeting earlier this week that it really makes sense is the hole's already gonna be opened up.
Right, you do.
We as a city are already gonna be redoing the sewer right through there, which the water lines lay right next to, right on top of the sewer. We're gonna have to move it. We're gonna be in there tearing stuff apart anyway. So that was the point I think that the public needs to know, that it makes a heck of a lot more sense to do it all while you got a hole opened up.
Yeah, economically, it makes more sense to do it one time.
Yeah, and I just want to make clear that I'm not disagreeing with you guys. I was just, you know, was brought to my attention that maybe we should just take a minute to look at it, and that was it. So.
Which I think we are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure are. Any more public participation? Seeing none, we'll adjourn at 7:14 p.m.
Health and Safety Committee, March 6, 2025.
I call the Health and Safety Committee meeting to order at 7:15 p.m. Members present are Kevin Myers, C. Aaron Sherrick, James Mee, and myself, Vicki DeShawn, as chair. First, public participation. Anybody wishing to speak to the committee, please come to the podium and state your residential address.
I thought I had some, but I'm just gonna wait.
Okay. Any other public participation? Seeing no one, next I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the February 20th, 2025 regular Health and Safety Committee meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 12th, 2025 regular Health and Safety Committee meeting.
Second.
Motion by Sherrick, second by Myers. Roll call. Myers.
Yes.
Sherrick.
Yes.
Me.
Yes.
And myself, DeShawn, yes. Next we have on the agenda is Cruising with the Cops Custom and Classic Car Show. We have our annual letter that we received asking for streets to be closed down. The Cruising with the Cops Car Show is going to be held on Saturday, June the 14th, 2025. I believe everyone's given a copy of the letter. So at this time, I would entertain a motion requesting non-emergency legislation, authorizing and directing the Public Service Safety Director of the City of Bucyrus, Ohio, to ban all vehicular traffic, including bicycles and skateboards, except authorized emergency personnel for the Cruisin' with Cops Custom and Classic Car Show on Saturday, June 14th, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Myers, second by Sherrick. Roll call. Myers.
Yes.
Sherrick.
Yes.
Me.
Yes.
And myself, DeShawn, yes. Okay, next. Open projects. I have my list. First off, just for a status report, and so that the public, knows what is going on. The Bucyrus Codified Ordinance, Chapter 505, which deals with animals and fowl. If you will all remember, last year, we were looking at revisions to Chapter 505 because of the fact that there was the referral of the trap, neuter, return program to the committee. After several meetings, it was decided that since the trap, neuter, return program has been in existence for a number of years without government involvement, that there would be no inclusion of the TNR in our codified ordinances. It was suggested that those interested citizens who had attended the committee meetings, specifically on the TNR, meet among themselves to view the entire chapter to see if they had any suggested revisions that they would like to submit to the committee for consideration. With that being said, Victoria Caldwell, the Executive Director of the Humane Society, will be speaking at our March 20th committee meeting and letting us know what their small group is, suggesting that we might want to consider for some revisions. So Mr. Gobrick, I'm asking, how are you coming on the draft of that particular chapter based on my email of January 22nd, where I was answering your various questions that you had?
That particular piece has gotten pushed to the wayside.
Okay.
But I'm still working on it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. And then, like I say, with Mrs. Caldwell coming, and if they have any changes that, may need to go into that draft, wonderful. Next is our Bucyrus Codified Ordinance, Chapter 709, food trucks. Just again, what's the status of the meeting that's to be held between Law Director, Service Safety Director, Mayor, and Zoning Administrator?
We have that tomorrow.
Wonderful. So meeting tomorrow. All right. Next, Bucyrus Codified Ordinance, Chapter 711, peddlers and solicitors. I know we asked about that at the last committee meeting, and you had indicated that it was almost done. Little nudge, the fact that, nice weather's coming. We're probably going to be having, all those people out and about wanting to ring your doorbells, what have you. And so I might push you a little on that.
Cool deal.
Okay?
All right, we'll have it by next meeting.
Thank you very much. Then we have Bucyrus Codified Ordinance, Section 381.04, which is the taxi cab insurance requirement. Just checking on the status. You were going to prepare a draft.
Since that one is just going to mirror the state, it's not really pressing
Okay.
on my schedule. But
Okay.
I'm working on it.
Okay, all right.
I have a question on that one. Is there a way we can make sure in there that they understand that state minimum is not state minimum for your personal vehicle? It's a different type of state minimum, because everybody keeps referring to it as, oh, it's the state minimum. No. It's not like you would have on your personal car. It's specific.
Commercial?
Yeah. It's a whole different type of state minimum at that point in time.
Well, at that point, the ordinance would then be giving legal advice, which is a no.
That's not legal advice to actually
law.
specify what the law states.
No.
You're not saying,
like
hey.
what you're saying is
Right now, we've got people
To
giving them
say-
legal advice.
the legislation is supposed to say it mirrors the Ohio Revised Code minimums, and then proceeds to tell them what that means.
Well, it'd be minimums for such a thing, which would be listed out, right? So in other words, it would state what type of minimum that is, correct?
Now, see, you're confusing me because Kevin wanted it to just be,
We're not putting that
have
out
like
there.
catch-all That way they,
Right, I think what she's saying is she wants your wording to say mirrors the state's minimum requirements for commercial vehicles.
okay.
Yeah.
I
Is
think
that,
that's all
Or
she's saying.
tax- Right. So that, because right now we've got people giving them advice stating it's state minimum, and they're seeing it as their normal state minimum coverage, they're not seeing it as what it is, actually.
I think that's all she's asking, is for that clarification.
I can do that.
because you're looking at state minimum for normal vehicle, 25,000,
Yeah.
and for commercial, 1.5 million?
50,000 per person.
Okay. Criminal ordinance package. That was referred by the law director to our committee. I know we've received emails from the law director with various statutory and chartered cities and how they're handling. At our
So-
last meeting, you were going to prepare a draft.
Yes, I met with the chief of police and we picked which ones we actually want to implement and why.
Okay.
And so now I'm going to start the draft.
Okay.
Did you speak with the person in charge of billing for court-appointed counsel?
No.
I would definitely speak with Colette, because there are rules in the books, and if you start having things by local municipal codes, we're not, it's the same as putting somebody in jail, we have to cover that. Same with their court-appointed counsel fees. And no, that does not all come in from the fees, because you don't know what the court-appointed counsel fees are until after it's all done. You don't bill the court until after, as an attorney.
Really, I didn't know that.
I'm just stating, because your thing before was, well, that's in their fees, but it's not. Like, their fees are set prior to that.
Well, we were talking about court costs,
No,
not court-appointed counsel.
I brought up court-appointed counsel fees.
Okay.
Those are not reimbursed by the state if it's by a local municipal code.
Anything else on that subject? Then lastly, on my open project list, the property maintenance and appeals board appointments, or property maintenance appeals board appointments. We got an email from Clerk Wise letting us know, well, a little background. We have two individuals whose terms have expired. The one individual, well, we have three that have expired. The one individual, Mr. Steve Pfeiffer, does wish to serve again. Mr. Ron Boers does not wish to serve again. And Floyd Farmer has stated that he will serve again only if no one else wishes to serve. In other words, if there's somebody else out there that wants it, he'll gladly, let them step in. So Miranda put out a, press release or whatever you want to call it, saying, hey, anybody interested? Well, she hasn't received any applications. The deadline's come and gone. Now, on that, I don't know if you remember, Mr. Gobrick, you and I sort of were going back and forth with, I was questioning how the appointment was actually to be done, 4 members to that appeals board. And then we were talking about who's the chief appointing authority, which you indicated that you felt that was the council president. Correct. And not the mayor. So when we spoke back on February the 12th, I said to you, that's great, I understand, you're the law director. I just asked that, because we were sort of on a different page, if you would just, send me an email explaining to me your thoughts and why. That's just me wanting a paper trail. And then to get with Miranda and check the press release that she had already prepared to make sure everything was okay. So comes along, you gave her the permission to go ahead and do that. Wonderful. But then at the February 13th special ad hoc meeting, for the creation of the Bucyrus Property Maintenance Code, discussion came up about the Property Maintenance Appeals Board membership. And there was discussion about, because the members that serve on the BZA, Board of Zoning Appeals, and the members that serve on the Bucyrus Board of BBSA, Bucyrus Building Standard Appeals, are the same individuals, could those same individuals also serve on the Property Maintenance Appeals Board? And in listening to the video, watching the video, listening to the audio, I believe it came back to where you didn't see any problem with that.
What's the question?
So my question is, do we want the membership to the Property Maintenance Appeals Board be the same individuals that are currently serving on the other two boards? And if not, what are we going to do since we have, well, I guess basically we have just one opening, because Mr. Farmer said that he would serve again if no one else wished. So we do just have...
Well, whether you want that to be or not is up to you guys. We can do it that way. We can also not do it that way.
Okay.
If I may.
Sure.
At that meeting, I also clarified that the members that were already, or previously their terms had expired, they were already serving on the BZA, the BBSA, and the Property Maintenance Appeals Board. So it's kind of already just happened to be set up that way. However, with them not wanting to do one but still continue on with the other two, I don't know how that would affect
But I
that.
mean, okay, maybe I'm not understanding you correctly, Miranda. I mean, right now on the Property Maintenance Appeals Board, we have Jared Miller.
Correct.
He does not serve right now on the other two boards.
Correct.
We have
Bill Stucker.
Bill Stucker does on the other. Floyd is on the others. Steve Pfeiffer is not on the other two. And then, of course, Ron Bors isn't on the other two, but, you know, he's not wishing to serve again. And I guess my concern also was, if you look at the different sections on the 212 International Property Maintenance Code, it talks about how the board is appointed, and it doesn't appear that we're following that, but I think that's where you and I sort of differed on our interpretation of the appointment. So I don't know if the committee,
Would we want to reach out to the other members that,
Pfeiffer and Miller.
yeah, well, Piper's already on there, right? No.
well, but Pfeiffer is not on the BZA or the BBSA.
Same thing, who else is on the BBSA and the BZA that isn't? There's Miller.
That, okay, I'm sorry,
That
Aaron.
isn't on the board, because we're looking for another member. So if they can have the same members, maybe one of those other people that's not on it would like to.
Okay, the same individuals that serve on the BZA and the BBSA,
Just what individuals there are not on the
are not on the property maintenance
Property
appeals.
maintenance.
Harry Lipscomb, Rod Stride,
would we like to reach
and Bill
out?
Stucker.
I say, would we like to reach out to those people and see if they, any of them would have the interest of stepping into this other one? Since it can overlap like that?
So we're saying, we're saying we want to keep the Property Maintenance Appeals Board and see if, I mean, we still want to keep Mr. Miller, we still want to keep Steve, and we want to see if either Mr. Lipscomb or Mr. Stride want to fill in the position that Rod Bors does not wish to? Okay.
Vicki,
Sure.
the BZA meets next Tuesday
Okay.
afternoon. So 4 out of the 5 members of that will be here. So do you want them to be asked then? Since Jim's also on the BZA?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're being quiet.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry, yes, Jim's on there as our council
Now you have your
representative.
assignment.
Yeah.
He's over here hiding.
That's fine with me. Do you know where we're going, Jim, with what my question is?
So,
We can fill Rob Moore's spot.
Or do you want me to type something up for you and email it to you? And
oh, that'd be awesome.
All right.
That makes life easy.
when is it you meet? Did you say, Mike?
Tuesday the 11th.
Okie dokie. Okay. We'll try that first.
Perfect.
Great, thank you, Aaron. That's all I have on open projects. Anybody else have any other open projects they wish to talk about? Okie dokie. So, public participation, I'm sorry.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. So what's going on with the manning document for the fire department? You know, the 4 versus 6. You brought it up the last time, Vicki, that there was supposed to be some talks between the administration and the fire department. So can you give us maybe an update on that? What's going on? Thank you.
Now, I'm sitting here, I want to look at, is that, that's in my committee. That's our committee, I should say. Okay. And that was where I had stated before that we were waiting for the administration to say that they were ready to bring that before council, or before committee, to talk about.
I said they just said they were not ready.
Okay. Did you hear that, Mr. White? Okay. Any other public participation? All right. Then I adjourn our Health and Safety Committee meeting at 7:36 PM.
Public Lands and Buildings Committee, March 6, 2025.
I'm calling the Public Lands and Buildings Committee to order at 7:37 PM. Members present are Christopher Moritz and Kevin Myers and myself, Aaron Sherrick, Chair. Mr. Hickman had to leave to go to work. First up, we have public participation.
Kurt Fankhauser, 1450 Michigan Drive. Regarding the sale of property and identification of potential properties that could be sold, have we identified any more, or has the administration identified any more of the, like the little lots that might be something that could get sold? Because you know, we're into March now, and a couple more months we're going to be in the summer months, and I don't want to see us mowing those unnecessarily and paying city employees, you know, to mow them. So is there any, have you guys, are you thinking anything else other than what we've got with the North End Fire Station and the Wendy's lots selling here, or how are you guys feeling on that?
There was a couple more on that list that they definitely can sell, so.
Okay. I'd just like to see public lands continue to move forward on disposing of unnecessary properties that we're not utilizing, because especially now with the $4.25 extra cost per hour to mow the lots, you know, I just feel like that's kind of unnecessary spending at that point.
Could we get an updated list of what you want to dispose of?
It was whatever was given to you. It says on there on the left-hand side.
I thought, the
Was-
last
was-
I remember, we asked you to check with each of your department heads to make sure there was reasons that they did or didn't want to get rid of them.
You were gonna give us a finalized list of
Yeah.
what we could exactly get rid of. The last one's a whole
Some
list
of
of
them might
everything.
I can't hear her.
We were waiting on a finalized list from you. There was some that might have sewer or water issues, things like that, so we were waiting on a final.
Yeah, that was,
These are the,
that list that showed what was for sale, gonna be sold almost immediately. And the only thing that we had was the old tower lot. John just has to unhook that.
Okay.
And he already knows that, and so.
Can you forward that back to us again then one more time to make sure that we all have the same list?
Yep, I can do that.
And can we put that on our agenda for our next meeting?
Sorry, Aaron, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Yep. Do we have an approximate value of these land properties as well? No?
I think they're all gonna be varied because of their size and their location. Like, for instance, one of them, if I remember right, was when you're going out Poplar Street, right there by the bridge, there was like a little sliver right there. That's probably worth $50, you know, because it's just such a little piece. And I don't even know if we're mowing it or if the person who lives on the corner is mowing that one. But that would be one where you just look at that person that lives next door and be like, here you go.
Would you like
We'll sell it to you for $1. That's actually, I was gonna get around to that kind of situation where there are properties like it in town. If it's just one empty lot because something burnt down and the city owns that now for some reason, it didn't get transferred over, maybe talk to the neighbors of that lot, see if they wouldn't buy it for $1 or something. That would get it off of our.
Especially if it's not a
list of-
buildable lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So do we have anything else on open projects? No? All right, any more public participation?
One more thing, the auction is ending tomorrow for the North End Fire Station, so.
Okay, so the auction is ending tomorrow for the properties that are for sale.
Bids will be open tomorrow at
For the fire station.
10 o'clock, I think. Yeah, so,
Oh, they open at 10 a.m.?
yep.
I brought this to the attention of this committee and council about possibly looking at some of this land that maybe have sewers and water lines running through it for a community garden.
Okay, Greg, that would be talking to a group that wants to do it and having them approach the administration with their idea. And we don't have to okay that in here. So when I told you that that was a really administrative function, and if there's a group out there that would really like to do it, they should go to the administration with their idea.
Okay, but we'd like to know what land is available.
There's your people to talk to.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Is there any other public participation?
Yeah, I do have a question. This is for Brandon. If a piece of property was sold or donated to the city and there's a deed restriction in the deed, can that be resold or does it have to stay with the city in perpetuity?
Depends on the deed restriction.
I was going to say, it depends on the deed restriction.
Okay.
Well, do you have a specific one in mind?
It's currently attached to the Allmiller Park.
Okay. No, it wouldn't require us to keep it, but depending if it runs with the land or not, it'll have to be something that's complied with unless we or the subsequent purchaser can actually kill off the deed covenant, but wouldn't stop us from selling it.
I thought maybe that'd stay with the property.
Okay, anything else? All right, saying nothing, I'm going to adjourn at 7:44 p.m.
Finance Committee, March 6, 2025.
Call Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:45 PM. Members present are Mr. James Me, Mr. Christopher Moritz, Mrs. Vicki DeShawn, and myself, Chair Kevin Myers. Any public participation for finance?
Fankhauser, 1415 Michigan Drive. I got to sit in on a meeting on Tuesday morning with the auditor, mayor, service director, Mr. Myers, finance committee chair, and Mrs. DeShawn, finance committee member. And it was about this water fund deficiency. And we had Cindy McCafferty from Local Government Services, State Auditor's Office was there. And we found out that they said they looked through everything pertaining to that fund, and they said, and I took notes in that meeting, and they said as of 12/31, that water fund was in a $1 million deficiency. So I know we were kind of being told initially we wouldn't be able to know this information until May, as far as when the gap conversion was done, but the state auditor's office came in, they said the deficiency's there, and then they also proceeded to tell us that pretty much our only option to resolve this at this point is we have to get a general obligation bond, and it's going to have to be a 10-year. Just the way things happen, and we're not going to be able to pay it off early either, because the way these bonds work, the banks that issue them, they want the long-term note. So then we had another meeting today with the bond company. I also took notes, or not the bond company, the
Squire Patton Boggs.
it's a lawyer that specializes in bonds, bond attorney.
Bond counsel.
And the process that we have to go through with that is this committee, the finance committee, is going to have to request legislation for up to a $1,050,000 maximum cap on this at a maximum interest rate of 7% and term length not to exceed 15 years. And then the committee requesting that legislation. So Brandon's actually not going to write this legislation. The bond attorney is going to write the legislation and then get it back to us hopefully prior to the next council meeting, because apparently, and this is going to have to be done as emergency too, by the way. So, because it has to get done. We can't, slow this thing up. It needs to be, the deficiency needs to get corrected. They got time that they're going to have to go out with the banks after the legislation is passed. So I guess that's where we're at with it right now. Vicki, did you have any?
I just wanted to say I appreciate you coming and giving us that information. However, our auditor is going to be speaking about that tonight and has prepared a report. And I guess there's no reason for you to go on anymore about the meetings that you attended, because our auditor will be.
Well, I guess the main reason, the one thing I wanted to make sure it was clear was, because I had initially been the one that was coming up here continually to the podium citing the concern and that we needed to get on this and do something about it, and it was kind of, there was some pushback on the council and the committee, and they said, oh, we don't know that, we don't know that. Well, everything I said was true, basically, with the $1 million.
We'll give you a pat on the back.
I just would like it recorded in the minutes that I was right.
Awesome.
Is there any other public participation? All right, seeing none, you have before you the minutes for the February 20th, 2025 regular Finance Committee meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Me and a second by Mr. Moritz. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Me?
Yes.
Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mrs. DeShawn?
Yes.
I'm also a yes, that motion carries. All right, Waterworks debt recovery. Auditor Lewis, is there anything left in your report to read?
To Mr. Fankhauser's point, I did just want to say that at the time, if you recall, Ms. McCafferty did say that when she came in and spoke to me in December, that she thought the negative fund balance was around $500,000. So at the time when I provided my report and all the information I was going on at the time, I stand by that report. And it was not incorrect or inaccurate to the information that was given to me at the time, if that makes sense. Okay, so if you have in front of you the report on the meeting with Bond Counsel 3/6/2025 at 2 p.m., which was today. Those in attendance were Heather Volsuk, Senior Attorney at Squire Patton & Boggs, Christopher Franzman, partner at Squire Patton & Boggs, which is a public and infrastructure finance practice group, and they're our bond counsel. Kaylee Lewis, the auditor, Bruce Chiruka, the mayor, Tommy Starner, safety service director, Brandon Gobricht, law director, Kurt Fankhauser, council president, Kevin Myers, finance committee chair, Chris Moritz, finance committee member, John Ernsberger, waterworks distribution foreman. Type of bond discussed. We discussed a 10-year and a 15-year general obligation GO bond with expectation to be paid out of the Waterworks Fund revenues. The ORC does allow for municipalities to reimburse themselves, meaning that we can take out a bond for previous projects within a reasonable time after project completion. These bonds have, these bonds have typical principal and interest components, often billed twice a year in June and December of every year. Bond counsel recommended approaching larger banks as they have more experience with these types of municipal bonds, whereas smaller banks may not. Bond counsel was able to reach out to Huntington Bank requesting indicative, which may change, taxable interest rates for bonds between $900,000 and $1 million. For a 10-year bond, it was 5.84%. We can prepay the debt before 6 years. It would be a 2% penalty after no penalty. For 15 years, it would be a 5.99% interest rate. We can also prepay that debt. Before 10 years, there's a 3% penalty. After, there's no penalty. And to point out what Mr. Fankhauser was saying with that, and why he believes we should pay them off in full and take the entire 10 or 15 years, whichever we decide to do. He believes they believe that's the best, because it tends to be that you're paying more on interest at the beginning of the loan. So the people who are making money off of your loan, they want you you pay the first 6 years, well, they got most of their money. If you want to pay it off early, then that's fine. So, it's not really benefiting us a lot to pay it off early after that 6 or 10 years. Bond counsel does have the ability to roll their fees into the bond. The next steps that need to be taken is the fiscal officer certificate, which I'm going to email them and follow up a little bit more on for what my role in that will be. Bond ordinance, water system improvement bond 2025 will need passed. Bond counsel cannot set final terms until the ordinance has passed, and it would be preferable to be passed as an emergency. Bond counsel will take a couple weeks to prepare all documents. Then they will close with the bank, Huntington. The suggested terms to be set in the bond ordinance are $1,050,000 at 7%, capped at 7% interest, and capped at a 15-year term length.
One thing that I took down in my notes that slightly differs from that.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. What I heard was that they wanted us to request a legislation not to exceed $1,050,000.
Yes.
Not to exceed 7%. And not to exceed 15 years, that they felt that it would most likely be a 10-year bond. But we were giving that option in case it needed to be spaced out. So I just wanted to make sure that these aren't the exact terms. These are the worst case scenario terms.
Yes, thank you.
So, just on this particular topic, Mr. Mead, do you have any questions?
Yeah, it's 15-year bonds, it's gonna keep our payments down, right? So that would be beneficial.
And that was what we might want to consider too if we're discussing the additional bond, because it's going to be 2 payments coming out. Would we rather do the lower payments for the 15 years or so? Just things to keep in mind.
Any other questions?
I did also want to say that in my auditor's report on Tuesday, I had mentioned that we would potentially get our bond counsel to come in and give a presentation. I didn't realize quite as many people would be in my office today. So if you guys think this is a fairly accurate retelling of the report,
Absolutely.
if we can not have to pay them to come in and say the same information?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think they need to come in.
I know, I don't either.
Okay. This is
Yeah.
good for
Do you have any further questions on this topic?
No, I understand.
Mrs. DeShawn?
I have no questions.
Pretty accurate from when I was there today,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. So what I'm seeking is a motion requesting emergency legislation authorizing the auditor to, is it the auditor at this point that would enter into the, no, we're actually just asking for the emergency legislation for the ordinance to be prepared.
So we have
And
it,
they're preparing it, not you.
Correct.
So I'm requesting somebody to make a motion requesting emergency legislation for the 2025 water system improvement bond not to exceed $1,050,000, not to exceed 7% interest, and not to exceed a 15-year term length.
So moved.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Mr. Me and a second by Mr. Moritz. Is there any further discussion? If not, roll call, Mr. Me.
Yes.
Mr. Moritz.
Yes.
Mrs. DeShawn.
Yes.
I'm also a yes, that motion carries. Auditor Lewis, does that encompass everything we need for them at this point?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. On the airport terminal building, the service committee approved moving it on to us. Now we need to have a motion requesting emergency legislation authorizing the service director to go out for bid for the project.
I'll make a motion for that.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Moritz and a second by Mr. Me requesting emergency legislation authorizing the service director to go out to bid for the airport terminal building. Any further discussion? All right, if not, roll call, Mr. Me,
Yes.
Mr. Moritz,
Yes.
Mrs. DeShawn.
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Motion carries. All right, appointments to the Income Tax Board of Review. Who has that information?
I was able to reach out to Lisa Whited. She said she would be interested in participating again. I was informed, I think by you, Kevin, that Larry had moved out of town.
Yeah.
So we'll have to find someone else to fulfill his position.
Okay.
And then Joy Schiffer, she was appointed by administration, and it did not say there was a term limit on her appointment.
Okay. Would you like to do a similar advert seeking interested people reach out to you? All
If
right.
anyone has any recommendations, it would be nice. There's a gentleman who is looking to schedule an appointment. So,
Can that board meet without those two?
I can ask, I'm not certain. There would only be two, so if there was a split decision, if Larry can't participate, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So.
And he may very well still be able to participate.
Okay.
I mean, I know he moved, but he's still, I saw him the other day at the bank, so I know
Okay.
he's been in town.
All right,
So
okay,
that's a thought. Until we get somebody else, you might reach out to him, see if he's still available.
okay. Well, I didn't know, since it's a Bucyrus local, if you had to be a resident, because you're talking about Bucyrus income taxes, or.
He still owns his house here. It's listed for
Oh,
sale.
okay,
So
Okay.
he has moved,
gotcha,
but, so.
right.
All right. Mr. Me, are there any open projects you wish to discuss?
No, sir, I'm good for now.
Mr. Moritz?
Nope, not this time.
Mrs. DeShawn?
No.
All right, I've got a couple, talking about the deficits in the general fund and the overall health of our finances. I had asked a couple questions and I've not gotten any of my answers back yet. I'm gonna ask a couple of them now for the administration and for the auditor. I'd asked if you guys could kind of come up with, if we do have to look at the out-of-town credit, I would like to know, where do you feel that fairly needs to fall for what deficit we're gonna have? Do you have any answers yet for that?
Are you asking for a, like, okay,
if we know that this year we're $300,000 short
Okay.
and what our projected numbers are gonna be in the next coming years, if we were going to look at reducing or eliminating that credit, I don't wanna just say, well, let's just wipe the whole thing out. I wanna
Right.
know, where do we fairly need to fall? If we need a half of 1% to balance and make our ends meet, that's all I wanna ask for.
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking, where do we need to fall?
Okay. So that is going to be, I guess it depends how the elections go, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So I can try to look at a couple different scenarios and see what I can come up with.
okay. My next question is, I know we held a meeting in January where we met with the fire chief and the police chief and discussed possible measures that they could do for cost cutting. And it was determined that the police department pretty much was already running at a shoestring operation as far as manpower. We've talked about whether we're going to look into health and safety at eliminating the manpower ordinance in the fire department. Have either of the department heads brought forth any additional ideas to you guys for any cost cutting measures? Okay. All right. Those were my two main questions. If we could if you could circle back with them and see if they have any information or if they're holding with what they last spoke to us about, and then get me kind of where we need to fall so that we can have purposeful discussion within the committee, I would appreciate that. All right, public participation.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. I applaud you, Mr. Myers, for bringing those up because I brought it up to you. Where or in the budget can we save money? Okay? I understand about the out-of-town tax credit, but I don't understand why we're waiting on the elections to figure that out. I also...
Could I interject one thing real quick, too?
Hang on just a minute. Let me finish real quick. I also don't understand that the state came in and said we were $500,000 in the red on the water fund back in December when we were giving out pay raises, okay? And that our budget was over budgeted in the red by $300,000. My question is this, is why is it always that the taxpayers have to foot the bills for all this stuff? Why isn't the city and then the employees looking at ways to cut things from inside before you keep coming after us? Point taken, now we're going to have to pay for bonds, which means the auditor just stated it's going to raise our water rates again, and they were just raised in January. And the possibility just for the debt recovery, but then we're also going to have a bond on the, and I understand we should do it, on the South Sandusky water line to replace those lines. I'm in agreement with that. So now the city residents and taxpayers are going to keep footing these bills, but we see nothing from the inside giving back at all. No cuts, no nothing. How long can this committee keep and the council voting for stuff that is taking money out of the city residents? And now you possibly are going to come out of the out-of-town tax credit, which is going to cost me quite a little bit of money. Okay? I just made my payment today to the city for my taxes and was not happy about that either. Now you're going to come after more of my money and raise my water rates again? I'm telling you, the people of this town, they've came to you. We try to have an open discussion during the town hall meeting. Okay? I think it's time for another one to where the residents can actually sit down and come to you in a reasonable manner and bring suggestions and more ideas. But I think the administration and this committee and the city needs to look at cuts too. I mean, you guys are all ready to give raises out more. Yet now we have discovered we were $500,000 last year in the red in this fund, plus another 300,000 in the red on the budget. And it's been perfectly said. All these numbers are projected. They're not guaranteed. We know nothing. Thank you.
I'm going to assume for the last 5 minutes you weren't paying attention to my questions to the administration, because the exact same things you just asked about, I literally just asked them several questions. To counter some of your questions or points, first of all, and it's already been talked about and answered, but we'll bring it up again. When the auditor alerted us that there was a shortage, there was some communication lacking on all of our parts, and we've already all admitted how that fell apart. We had, there's a lot of things that happened in a short period of time. As Mr. Fankhauser stated, and I agree with him, we weren't alarmed to the point where we didn't understand the magnitude of what the debt was at that time. Mr. Gobrecht, was the one who orchestrated the deal with the union and that raise. When we had our meeting and were asked to support this, we asked the questions, can we afford this? And the answer that was given at that time was yes. It all unraveled all at the same time. If we knew today that we were going to be $1 million in debt, I don't want to answer for these other three people sitting up here, but I'll be damn sure that I would have voted no for it. And I bet you the three of you would tell me the same thing.
Already did.
Right. I attended a meeting with the administration and the chiefs on January 7th or 11th, one of the two, I can't remember the date, where we asked for ways to eliminate some expenses. I'm just asking today a follow-up question on that. The answer I was just given was no, they've not come forward with anything else. So I've asked to have them check into that so that we can. So to say that all we're doing is wanting to go after an out-of-town tax credit is not correct. If anything, we've tried to avoid that. I'd still like to avoid that. I asked the question again tonight of the auditor and the administration, if we do have to go that route, what's the fair number so that we're not just saying, to hell with all you people, we want all your money. Trying to be fair. So there's the answer to, I think, most of your questions, Mr. White.
And I just wanted to add to that. You said why we have to wait to the election. It was only because the reason I would have to run dual numbers is because depending on the election, it changes the tax rate. So because it would change the tax rate, how much we would be collecting from certain individuals, it could be, we might need with the street levy, if we might need, 0.5%. If the street levy fails because it changes the tax rate, we might need 0.75%, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and also the street levy that is up for renewal is a renewal, no new tax money. And I think what you want about what the city's done financially. What they've done with the street levy money time and time again is phenomenal. The job that this city has done with maintaining the street infrastructure is by far better than any town around us. And so I hear people say, well, I'm never voting for another levy again. Well, I don't think that money in this levy has ever been mismanaged. As a matter of fact, Jeff Dunn and his crew, the administration previously should be commended for the excellent job that they've done putting together a street program so that we've got some of the finest streets in all north central Ohio. I point out it's not new tax money, it's a renewal. And to your point, if that were to fail, then we're going to need more money because the general fund money is going to have to be spent to fix the problems with the streets if we don't have it in the street fund. So I think that's why we're looking at, nobody's saying we want to wait until after the election to come forward with ideas. I think she's saying we have to wait till the election to know what these numbers are going to be one way or the other.
And also to that point, we don't have that much left in the general fund to use for street stuff if that levy fails. And we're up at 82% the general fund's going to use this year?
I don't know off the top of my head, I believe.
Okay. Okay. All right, any further public participation?
Just a second here, if I may. Oh, well, I guess I'm not a public participant. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Kurt Fankhauser, same address. I just want to say that I really appreciate that Kaylee invited and allowed the council members into the meetings with the auditor and the bond counsel attorney, because it helped clarify to the council what the need was and the process with that. So I guess I'm commending Kaylee for that, because it just helps everything flow better here when we're all
On the same page.
in that meeting, so that's it.
Vicki?
I would just like to remind everyone that back at our February 20th Finance Committee meeting, when Mr. White came up and spoke under public participation, among other things that he had to say, he says, yes, these decisions are not easy ones, but they have to be made. As the chairman of this committee, you're on the ship and it's sinking hard and fast. Many people had good ideas of saving money in the budget, but no one is listening at all. I call that the deaf ear syndrome. Even city employees must take cuts and must take some of the burden off the budget, but they're not budging. You're willing to give them more raises at our expense. This crap needs to stop, and it needs to stop now, because I will guarantee you, I'm going to be the one, this is a quote, I'm going to be the ones that are going to help put a commission on to vote no on the street levy and everything else that comes down the pike, because I won't put up with it anymore. So if, Mr. White is successful in what he's claiming he's going to do, then that answers your question on, we're looking at a different percentage or tax rate, or I'm just concerned, we talk out of this side, and then we turn around and we talk out of this side. It's frustrating. Thank you.
All done?
Yes.
All right. We'll adjourn at 8:12 PM.